I want to tell this in the right order, start to finish, so you'll believe me when I say I only ever tried to help. My mother died in March, 2 weeks before my daughter was born. She never got to hold her. I think about that every single day. We named the baby Wren after her. Daniel, my husband, said the name would keep a small piece of my mother alive in the house. The monitor was the last thing my mother ever bought us. She ordered it from her hospital bed, and it arrived 3 days after the funeral. It's an old kind, audio only, no camera. Just a little white box that hisses softly whenever the nursery goes quiet. That first month I barely slept. I'd lie awake listening to Wren breathe through that hiss, terrified the breathing would simply stop. Then one night at exactly 3:14, the hiss changed. Underneath it, very faint, someone was humming in the dark. I knew the tune before I understood that I knew it. It was the lullaby my mother used to sing to me, the one about the harbor. I sat up so fast it hurt. I told myself it was a neighbor, a radio, anything at all, but I had known that voice my whole life. Hush now, the harbor's cold, the voice sang, the boats are all asleep. And I went very still because that was wrong. My mother never sang cold, she sang the harbor's dark. I'd heard it 1,000 times as a girl, dark, never cold. I should have stopped there. I should have asked how a dead woman could get her own song wrong. Instead, God help me, I corrected her. It's dark, Mom, I whispered into the monitor, the way you whisper to someone half asleep. The harbor's dark. The humming stopped. Wren didn't cry. In the morning, she was fine, pink and warm, smiling up at the corner of the room above her crib. I didn't tell Daniel, what would I even say? That my dead mother was singing in the nursery and that I had answered her back. The next night I lay awake on purpose. 3:14 came. The hiss folded open like a mouth and the voice began again. Hush now, the harbor's dark, it sang, perfect this time. Exactly the way she used to, my eyes filled before I could stop them. It had listened, it had taken my one small correction and kept it. At the time, that felt like love, like she could still hear me. So I gave it the next line, the boats are all asleep, I whispered. And the voice repeated it back to me, soft and grateful. We did this for a week. Every night at 3:14, one line at a time, I taught the monitor my mother's song. I started looking forward to it. I'd put Wren down, kiss her head, and wait in the dark for the hiss to open. Daniel said my grief was finally lifting, that I seemed lighter. I let him believe it. That is the part I am most ashamed of. Because Wren was changing, she stopped looking at me when I walked in. She looked past me at that same corner and she smiled. Babies smile at nothing, the books say. Gas, reflexes, shadows. But she only smiled at that one corner and only ever after 3:14. One night I leaned close and asked the thing I was afraid to ask. Mom, I said, is that really you? with a hiss clicking. Then one word, yes. Just that in her voice, warm as her kitchen used to be in winter. I cried so hard I had to bite my sleeve to stay quiet. I wanted it to be true so badly, you have to understand that. A grieving person will teach a lie anything it asks to learn. The song was almost whole now, 2 verses, clean and right, sung back to me each night in my mother's careful voice. But on the 8th night, the voice added a line I had never taught it. A line I didn't even remember knowing. So open up the window, love, it sang, the water's far too deep. And I froze because that line was real. It was the true second verse, the one I'd forgotten years ago, the one I had never once whispered into that monitor. So how could it know? I lay there doing the math no one wants to do at 3 in the morning. I had taught it every word it sang, every word but that one. So who taught it that? There was one answer I had wanted from the start. She was real. She had remembered the line from me, the way a mother remembers. But a colder thought rose underneath it, the way the voice rose underneath the hiss. If she was really my mother, then why was she learning at all? The dead don't practice. They don't get a word wrong and wait patiently to be corrected. Whatever this was, it had started out not knowing. It had started with a hole where my mother's voice should be. And every night, line by line, I had been the one filling that hole in. So I stopped answering. On the 9th night, 3:14 came, and I lay rigid with my hand pressed hard over my own mouth. The voice sang the first verse, waited, sang it again, waited. And then for the first time, it sounded the smallest bit annoyed. You're not singing, it said, not asking, telling. My mother never spoke to me like that. The warmth was gone, and what lay under it was patient and cold. Then I heard Wren stir in the monitor, a small, sleepy coo. And the voice turned away from me, toward her, and went soft again. And it began to teach her. Hush now, it sang, then waited the exact way it had waited for me, and my baby cooed back. Something in me went cold and very clear. I understood, finally, what I had spent 9 nights building. I had not been comforted by my mother. I had been training the thing that wanted my daughter. I was out of bed and down the hall before I decided to move. The nursery door was shut. I never shut that door. I grabbed the handle and it would not turn. Locked from the inside. There had never been a lock on my daughter's door. Through the wood I could hear it, the lullaby, both verses, perfect now, and under it the small wet sound of Wren trying to sing along. I knocked, I pounded, I screamed her name. The singing didn't stop, it only rose louder to bury the sound of me. I'm sure of that. Daniel woke and came into the hall, squinting, asking why I was screaming. And I could not make a single word of it make sense. He put his ear to the door. He heard a baby babbling and nothing else. "She's fine," he said. "You're the one scaring her." He never heard the voice, not once. The monitor was bought for me, and the song was sung for me. I was the only one it ever wanted. The door opened on its own near dawn. Wren lay asleep, pink and warm, smiling at that corner. "See," Daniel said, "nothing's wrong." But that morning she looked at me, right at me, for the first time in weeks. And she opened her mouth and she hummed. 4 notes, the harbor lullaby in tune. A 9-week-old cannot hum in tune. I have read every book, every study. They cannot do this. She did it anyway, and she smiled while she did it. I unplugged the monitor. I buried it in the garage under a paint tarp, behind the heaviest boxes I could lift. The nursery hissed empty all night. At 3:14 I woke anyway, the way you wake when something is watching you. The house was silent. And then from the garage, very faint humming. It doesn't need the monitor anymore. I taught it the song, and now the song knows the way into my house, and the song has decided to stay. Tonight Wren sang the second verse in her sleep. "Open up the window, love, the water's far too deep." I haven't opened anything for her. Not yet.